Another public company announces that they're going to be using Bitcoin. Welcome back, everyone. It appears that there is no end to the partnership parade of companies that are using Bitcoin. On December 3rd, Bitcoin Magazine dropped a hint with the following X post indicating this aviation company is going to be using Bitcoin, but more specifically, they're going to be leveraging Bitcoin mining. Velato Group Inc., or ticker symbol SOAR, announces a new patent-pending technology that advances how aircrafts generate revenue by repurposing underutilized aircraft resources for cryptocurrency mining. This innovation has already benefited from significant Bitcoin price appreciation, reinforcing its potential to turn aviation's untapped resources into valuable digital assets. And guys, some of you may be laughing right now, being like, Phil, come on, you can't be serious. No, I'm serious. This company actually put out this press release, and I'm desperately trying not to make fun of it. Okay, I'm doing my best, but I'm having a very hard time. But let's continue because this does get a little cringier. Now, you might ask yourself, why am I saying that this is cringy? Because I'm obviously calling complete bullshit on this. Okay. And again, I'm not saying that an aviation company can't decide to mine Bitcoin, but in no way has, quote unquote, this innovation already benefited from significant Bitcoin price appreciation. What the hell does that mean? Like, what does that actually mean? So your patent pending technology has somehow benefited from number go up? How? It's nonsense. It's just a bullshit statement made by a PR firm. Of course, if somebody would like to correct me, I'm happy to learn. So, hey, put it in the comments. Let me know what I'm missing, because I just don't see how Bitcoin's price going up has somehow made this patent pending technology more worthwhile. The one thing I do see is this company explaining this and tying their name to Bitcoin so that they can get a pump in their shares. Yeah, I could see that might be a benefit. But otherwise, I think that this is all just a marketing PR stunt. Anyways, let's continue. Now, you might be wondering how this aviation company exactly is going to leverage Bitcoin mining. Like, what's going to happen? People are going to be flying in the air, and instead of having somebody sitting next to you, it's just going to be a Bitcoin miner running. What are they going to do? Well, here's a hint. The system operates using excess electricity generated during normal flight operations. Okay, yeah, I mean, like, that ties into the story, right, of excess electricity not being used, right, not being able to be sold by power providers, right? So that becomes wasted. So in come the Bitcoin miners, and now they are paying these utility companies for that electricity, right? So that kind of helps them with their revenues. Anyways, okay, so this part of it sounds plausible, right? Anyways, it also boasts seamless integration with no additional costs or resource demands. However, the system is designed to dramatically scale up and utilize additional onboard electricity when spoiled capacity, such as unoccupied seats or unused cargo space, occurs. This flexibility allows operators to transform inefficiencies into valuable Bitcoin assets, maximizing revenue. What? So I don't get it. Spoiled capacity such as unoccupied seats or unused cargo space. So my joke was actually possibly real. Whenever there's unused space, they're going to plug in the miners. Okay. I'm still paying attention, kind of. Unused electricity, unused space, unused resources. Bitcoin is great at using unused resources. So far, we're still paying attention. But how exactly is Bitcoin mining being tailored for aviation? Well, here we go. At the heart of Velato's invention is its patented use of specialty mining hardware. So are they building custom miners to put them on airplanes? Is that really what's happening? Anyways, it's optimized to achieve peak performance at high altitudes. I'm pretty sure that the altitude doesn't really matter. It's about the heat and cold and the efficiency of the actual miners. And usually in colder weather, mining hardware can be more efficient, right? It can be run, it can be overclocked, right? Because the environment is cooler, it's able to withstand essentially the negative effects of overheating. But I don't get what the altitudes have to do. Anyways, I don't claim to be an expert. I just think that that's just random nonsense. Continuing on, by operating in the cool and energy-rich environment of cruising aircraft, the system delivers superior efficiency. Aircraft operators can seamlessly integrate this technology into standard operations, turning inefficiencies into opportunities without impacting the aircraft's primary function. Okay, so I mean, we're turning airplanes into giant floating Bitcoin miners. In all fairness, I'm calling bullshit on this. I'm saying that this is a marketing stunt, but more specifically for me, this is very reminiscent of the .com bubble. And I remember, when that happened, I think in my second year of college. And all these companies are popping up all over the place, right? And the internet is the future. We've got companies like pets.com, Webvan, boo.com, WorldCom, North Point Communications, Global Crossing, right? There's a whole bunch of companies that appeared and, of course, had solutions, right? They were going to offer solutions and they were going to do it with the internet, right? They're leveraging the global net. And, of course, the carrot on the end of the stick that you could imagine is think of all the revenue, right? This isn't just localized to one specific state or one country. This is the global internet, so that means that the possibilities are just endless. And of course, to somebody who's looking at this sector, right? Looking at this sector to invest in, hey, that sounds very appealing. Of course, not every company failed in the .com bubble. According to the New York Times, 48% of .com companies founded after 1996 were still in business in 2004, and that's a similar survival rate to other technologies in their formative years, like cars and TVs. The .com bubble was a period when record amounts of capital flowed into the NASDAQ. Think about that, right? Think about these companies touting Bitcoin and think about the funds that are flowing into these companies for simply saying the magic words. It sounds very familiar. Anyways, many companies spent heavily on advertising and promotions to build their market share. However, many of these companies were unable to generate sustainable revenue. That's the key here, folks. Many of these companies were unable to generate sustainable revenue. And when capital markets tightened, they began to fail. In the last couple of weeks, maybe even the last few months, I've been keeping track of the public companies that have been claiming that they're going to either use Bitcoin as a treasury asset or somehow dive into the mining scene or using Bitcoin in some way to essentially attract eyeballs to their shares. And I got to tell you guys, these companies, okay, they honestly just look like classic pump and dump schemes. And unfortunately, right? Unfortunately for me, one of the big red flags is that every single one of these companies is a penny stock. Now, obviously, I'm not including the Semler Scientifics in this. I'm not including MicroStrategy in this. And I'm also not saying that those two are unicorns or that those two are, completely untouchable or anything like that. Look, every dog has its fleas, okay? So the reality is that in the end, right, if you are going to sit there and look at these companies and take them seriously, then at the very least, you want to choose a company that is best of breed in doing this particular activity and not just one that is essentially dying a very slow death and just attempting to offload whatever shares they can to bring some attention. Anyways, let's dive into it. Let's take a look at these companies. You may all remember I did a video about this company, Nila Resources, right, where the CEO essentially stepped down after he found out that they used Bitcoin as a pump and dump. Well, here's the chart. Now, guys, you may not know what you're looking at. This is a monthly chart, okay? Now, what does that mean? That means that every single one of these candles that you see, right, these vertical lines, whether they're green or red, each one of those candles represents a month of price action, okay? And you'll notice that since 2010, it's just been a flat, dead line until this point in 2024 where there was a massive, massive sale. Now, I know it's hard to believe, but that sale took place after they put out the news, right? They put out the Bitcoin news. You need exit liquidity, guys. This is how it works, okay? Now, when market makers are just not going to be able to do the job, and most of the time, right, a market maker to a certain extent is hired by the company that issues the shares. But the point I'm trying to make is this. You need exit liquidity. You need retail investors to come and buy these shares. So what do? You make a story like Nila Resources did about how they were going to start buying Bitcoin with their non-existent cash pile. Okay, Phil, this is just one example. I mean, I'm sure that this is just an exception. Well, let's take a look at the next company that announced. Another company that also announced its interest in Bitcoin was this SOS. Now, this is another hilarious one. So, essentially, this is a giant. To me, anyways, it's just a giant pump and dump where once upon a time it pumped, and it has just been a very long downtrend of dumping. Essentially 6 years. Now, in 6 years, they did multiple reverse stock splits. Okay. Now, reverse stock splits on their own don't necessarily indicate a red flag, but okay, when you have a company whose share price keeps going down and they risk getting delisted from an exchange, one of the tricks that a company can do is do a reverse stock split. Okay, and essentially what that means is, let's say you have 10 shares of SOS and they do a reverse split. Okay, they do a 1 for 10. Well, guess what? Those 10 shares, let's say each of those shares was worth $1, right? You had 10 shares that were worth $1. Well, when they do the reverse split, you will now have one share that is worth $10. Okay? So, and at that point, they can continue to go down even more, which is exactly what this SOS company has done. They did a 1 for 10 split, and then they did a 1 for 15 split. Okay, reverse split, I should say. And yeah, of course, I mean, the writing's on the wall. You guys can see the chart here. I'm not hiding anything. This is just a giant pump and dump that is on the way to zero. Anyways, if this isn't enough, let's continue. Say hello to the other company that also announced their foray into Bitcoin, Genius Group. Wow, you might be asking yourself, how come this chart looks like the others? That's because it's the same story, okay? It was pumped, and then it was dumped, and it's completely dead, all right? So this is not, guys, these companies are not part of the 48% of companies, right, that were referred to in the dot-com bubble that survived and thrived. Okay, these companies are part of the 52% of the companies that keep reinventing themselves and kicking the can down the road until they end up in 100% loss and bankruptcy. Now, look, I'm obviously not saying that that's 100% what's going to happen. Indeed, some companies may actually be using this to build their economic moat so that they can fight the good fight, so to speak. Okay, I'm not saying that that's not happening, but what I'm saying is this. When I start to see a pattern of one penny stock after another announcing some type of a Bitcoin thing, especially as Bitcoin's bull market is just it has been kicking off or is about to kick off or wherever the hell we are in this, to me, that's red flags, right? Like, to me, these guys are just figuring out how to milk more noobs. That's really all it is. I think that a lot of these companies that are making these announcements, they're going to be giant nothing burgers. We're going to revisit this stuff in a year from now, and you'll see it's going to be absolutely nothing. You could even revisit this in 2 years from now. I wouldn't be surprised if the companies that I showed you today, okay, are most likely going to have another rebrand right? Possibly away from Bitcoin. I wouldn't be surprised if we'd start to see a rebrand in the way of AI. Although I appreciate the positive news, I appreciate seeing Bitcoin in the news over and over again. I am going to tell people to be cautious. If you are one of those people who does dabble in equities and you think that these Bitcoin companies or these companies that are quote unquote exposing themselves to Bitcoin are somehow worthwhile, I strongly suggest you take a deeper look, because unfortunately, you will most likely find out that these are just penny stocks that are essentially going to zero, and the debt is just being used to, finance people's lives until the road runs out and they can find some other idea. Anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about today, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.